We've reached a sad point in American history wherein we have no choice but to be extremely skeptical of the government in general. We've been pushed to that point after lies started piling up and the conspiracy theories, almost every dang one of them, started coming true. You know, President Ronald Reagan once said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," and he was not wrong. However, I'd say an equally terrifying reality would be the government assuring us the friggin' SUV sized drones flying over a U.S. state every night for a month are nothing to worry about.
We believe that there are cases of mistaken identity where drones are actually small aircraft and people are misidentifying them. There very well may be drones in the sky, of course, but those are commercially available. One can go into a convenience store and buy a small drone. There are also commercial drones as well. But we know of no threat or nefarious activity. In September of 2023, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, changed the rules so that drones could fly at night. And that may be one of the reasons why now people are seeing more drones than they did before, especially from dawn to dusk. And so that is the reality. But I want to assure the American public that we are on it. We are working in close coordination with state and local authorities. And it is critical, as we all have said for a number of years, that we need from Congress additional authorities to address the drone situation. Our authorities currently are limited and they are set to expire. We need them extended and expanded.
What exactly do you need?
We want state and local authorities to also have the ability to counter drone activity under federal supervision. That is one important element that we have requested, and we've heard it echoed by the state and local officials themselves.
Wait, hold up here. Is that cat really trying to convince us these giant drones flying over New Jersey every night for a month were purchased at a Quickie Mart and the federal government and U.S. military lacks the authority to do anything about them? How stupid does he think we are? I mean, my God, have you ever seen a more incompetent man presiding over a government department in your life? Well, outside of Joe and Kamala, of course, I understand the bar is low over there. But really, this is the most dishonest and diabolical administration in U.S. history. They lie about everything. Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. COVID came from bats. Masks work. The vaccines work. There were no feds in the mix on January 6th. The border is secure, and I won't pardon Hunter Biden. The lies, 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 lies. So when they tell us to ignore drones flying overhead and just trust them that they're on top of it, yeah, sure. Joining me now is Republican strategist Melik Abdul. All right, Melik, what do you think? Are the drones just bought at a convenience store? Nothing to worry about here. We should just trust Alejandro Mayorkas. He did such a good job with the border. So I'm sure that there's just no problem with these drones every night. It's probably even a figment of our imagination.
Well, thanks for having me back once again. And the question is timely. Because Donald Trump just did, I think, about an hour and 15-minute interview where he talked about the very thing. And they were asking him the question about the drones. And Donald Trump just said flat out, they know, our government knows. Why they won't say, I don't know. But he said that the government exactly knows who it is. The idea, what they were even saying initially when they were reports of it, is that people, one of those kind of UFO things, because when people see things, they say, oh, well, that's just one of those type of UFO things. But when we started hearing, especially on Fox News, and apparently a number of people who are on Fox News live in New Jersey because they were able to talk about their own personal experience in seeing them themselves. And so we have to take it seriously and to think about, we're seeing now in places, I believe, even in Maryland, and there were even reports. Now, these reports are, at this point, haven't been proven, but there were reports of their drones flying in places like Washington, D.C., around the Capitol. People have a right to be concerned. People have a right to distrust what the federal government tells them. We remember COVID. People have a right to distrust the government. But the idea, as Donald Trump says, that, they know who it is, but then they say it's nothing to see here. It's absolutely ridiculous. We deserve an answer, and just trust us is not going to be enough.
Not only do we have a right to question, it's almost a duty at this point. We have a duty to question our government. Listen, if the military is doing something, if they're looking for something, just tell people that, hey, the military, we're doing exercises. Don't worry about it. We're looking for something. If they're worried about people panicking, guess what? People are panicking more so when you lie to them and you tell them that they're bought at a convenience store, or maybe they're just planes. When you try to convince people that what they're seeing with their own eyes is not in fact reality, that's how you cause panic, and that's how you cause even more conspiracy theories. Some might be true, some might not be, but now we're hearing videos all over Instagram, TikTok, X of people saying, I know what it is. Some of these people are probably full of crap trying to get attention. Others, maybe they're onto something. Others just speculating. But either way, the government has a responsibility to tell us what's going on, because listen, I'll tell you this right now, Melik, I don't know where you are in the country, but I'll tell you this. They would never try this in the South because people would be shooting at the sky. They would never do this in Tennessee. They would never do this in Texas or any southern state, even any Midwest state, because there's no way people would put up with this. And I'm actually shocked that nobody has taken matters into their own hands to this point. But if they were, that could actually be dangerous. So the government, just be honest with people. I know that that's a hard muscle for them to flex. They're not used to it. But I am hopeful that Donald Trump, in about a month's time, is going to come into office. Maybe we'll know what these drones are. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of it. But to me, this just makes Joe and his entire administration look even worse, trying to convince us that they're just actually that dumb, or they think that we're that dumb.
Well, look, I'm a longtime resident of Washington, D.C., but I always remind people that I am forever a son of the South, from the great state of Mississippi. So I grew up with my granddaddy with his shotgun in the back of the truck because, this was Mississippi. So it's a much different culture when it comes to guns here. I know that there are elements in the second aid industry here trying to get us, some more rights when it comes to guns. But when it comes to anything that you're talking about with the South, you're right. It absolutely would not be allowed. But again, and you said something, how unreasonable, if you think about it, how unreasonable is it for someone to say, you know what it is. Okay, well, tell us what it is. And, your point about this could be some type of training exercise. This could be some type of surveillance. And apparently, we aren't talking about your Hobby Lobby style drones. What has been reported is that these things have huge payloads. So these aren't you're just drones that you can get from the 5 and dime store. So yes, why can't you be honest and tell the American people? Because right now you're creating panic by not being transparent. But this is actually an indictment on the Biden administration, as you said. In fact, it's emblematic.
Yeah. And, maybe he should be coming out and addressing the American people. You referenced the presser that Donald Trump did this morning that just ended not too long ago. He answered more questions, and he took more questions in that short time. And he didn't have to, by the way. He has no obligation to do that. He actually had no obligation to hold a presser in the first place. He does it because he enjoys talking to the American people. What a concept. But he answered more questions there than we've heard from Joe or Kamala, I think, at least in the last 2 years combined from both of them. He's taking questions about everything. And, when they ask him kind of these off-the-wall questions about preemptive strikes against Iran, he's like, why would I ever answer that? So at least he's transparent that he's like, I'm not going to answer that. That'd be stupid for me to say. But he's being asked questions, he's answering questions, he's talking about what he's going to do for the country, and then also talking about investments that he's not even president yet, but he's already securing investments from foreign nations. What a concept. For once, it's not the other way around. I want to play this to just put a button on how excellent this man is diplomatically. And you know what? The world is so excited for Donald Trump. Let's take a look at this.
I'm excited to go, and we were discussing, and President Trump said, Masa, double down is not enough. Maybe, go for more, right?
That's what I'm going to ask him right now. Would you make it $200 billion instead of $100? He can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but, he's now asking to do more. I think, with your leadership, my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
That's good.
All right.
200. He'll make it happen. 200 billion investment.
He is a great negotiator.
All right, so to me, a party on the other side of the aisle was trying to sell us joy, and vibes for several months. It fell flat because it was disingenuous. But what I see there, and every time I see Donald Trump speak, even when I saw him in person at the Patriot Awards, is actual joy. Like, he really is excited about doing this job. And the world is actually excited for him to be doing this job. Not our enemies, of course, but those who are allies, those who really seek world peace and prosperity. They're so excited for Donald Trump. And it just feels like a new energy. What are you seeing?
Can I expose something to your audience? So I was hoping by mentioning the press conference. So we have a list of questions that, may come up. This is to the audience. I was hoping that you would take that hint and ask me about the press conference. And here it is. You literally have a segment on the press conference. This was not prepared, but I was hoping that you would ask me, because what you saw on Donald Trump, now that was an important part. And so people would know in 2016, the same company, I think, pledged 50 billion to the United States. And so they've doubled the price. They've doubled the number since 2016. So that's what they were referencing. But what Donald Trump did, I think just coming out of the gate, he was asked a question about the cabinet appointments and whether or not Republicans should be primary. And he didn't mention Senator Joni Ernst's name, but he defended her by default, because what he talked about, he said he would understand if someone had a reasonable objection to Pete Hegseth. Now, he didn't talk about that in that moment, but I thought that was very important. He did mention others, and we know who he's talking about. Susan Collins, who typically voted, against Donald Trump, and Lisa Murkowski. So he was actually referencing those, but he also talked about the vaccine. He was asked the question whether or not RFK would, move to ban any vaccines. Donald Trump didn't just say no. He said what many of us had said all along, that RFK would issue a report. And I want people to understand that that authority has to come from Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said that he would not ban any vaccines, but also mentioned the importance of the polio vaccine, and that he knew people who took the vaccine and it saved their lives. That is something that Donald Trump did in this hour and 15-minute or so interview. That was very important for many people like me, who I've always said Donald Trump was the first Republican I voted for in 2016, and he has now voting for him the third time. This is what I want to see from Donald Trump, because he has demonstrated that he can do it.
And his answers were so reasonable in my calculation. You mentioned they tried to get him on the vaccine thing. Like, they wanted their soundbite. They wanted to say Donald Trump will ban, or Donald Trump is anti-vax, or Donald Trump says such and such vaccine causes autism. And he didn't do that. He said, look, we're going to look at it because we have questions. The autism rates are much higher than they should be, much higher than they were historically. We got to look at something here. And why wouldn't people want to know? Like, it's one thing to say we're banning something that causes panic in people, but to say we're going to look into it, who would be like, you know what? We don't want to look into it. We don't want to report on this. We don't want to figure out if there's something going on here. I can't imagine any reasonable American, other than the folks maybe that work in big pharma who are making a lot of money off of it, that wouldn't want just some answers. But he answered a whole range of questions. And one of my favorite, I wish I had it, but it was coming up to the brink there. They were saying, what about Venezuela? They said that they're not taking their people back. And Donald Trump's like, they'll take them back. And you know what? When he says it, I believe him. I really do. I don't think that there's going to be a power player on planet Earth that's going to be able to just tell Donald Trump no. And Donald Trump's going to take that for an answer. When we're wronged, he's going to right those wrongs. And I think immigration is going to be a huge point here. I do want to ask you, going back to kind of last week on the immigration topic, we had New York City Mayor Eric Adams meeting with Tom Homan. He did a press conference afterwards. People were angry. He even met with him and he said, listen, we got to do something. Were you happy with the way the conversation went, or at least the reports of that conversation? And do you think that other blue city mayors might take a hint and follow in those footsteps?
I think that those mayors need to follow the hint of CEOs and world leaders. They acknowledge that Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, and they're going to have to work with them. what Eric Adams, and I don't know if in the part of the press conference, he was asked about whether or not he would, I think, pardon Eric Adams. And he said it was something that he would look at. But I thought that that was very important in a city like New York City that has really had to experience the crisis when it comes to the immigration, the amount of money, the millions and tens of millions that New York specifically has had to pour into this immigration issue. And I think on the immigration issue, Donald Trump has said it, Holman has said it, and you even heard Eric Adams say themselves, they are in unison on this notion is that we're going to go after the criminals. The idea that Donald Trump would be seeking to break up families and things like that, they don't talk about that. They really talk about going after the criminals. And we saw right before the election, I think it was tens of thousands of just illegals that we had in the country who've been convicted, like literally criminals in the country. And I think that's what they're going to focus on. But people really should take a page out of Eric Adams. I don't know if he's going to, I don't know New York politics, so I don't know if he's going to run for, or he can, or if he's going to run for new re-election. But he's doing what many other of these other mayors around the country, instead of coming out straight out the gate saying, we're going to protect our city, like the governor of Maryland, you know, we're going to protect our state from Donald Trump. He wants to run in 2028. That's what all of this is about. So you will see a lot of posturing, but that work is going to come from doing exactly what Eric Adams did.
Well, I'll tell you who's getting shredded, and that's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Oh, boy. People in Chicago are really, really angry, and for good reason. They're very angry because they want to tax them more so that they can pay for the migrants, and the best that Mayor Johnson can do is just say, oh, well, we're compassionate. Well, the compassion is running out and is going to run out for a lot of other cities and states as well. And for those who are looking at running in 2028, I would say, so you're going to bankrupt your cities and your entire states to take care of illegal immigrants, and you think that's an issue to run on in 2028? Like, did you not see what just happened in November? Apparently not. I'll tell you somebody else who I think has their tail between their legs right now, and that's ABC's George Stephanopoulos. I'm sure you saw the $15 million defamation lawsuit. That had to hurt a little bit. And I'm wondering if you think that other folks in the media who have a habit of lying on and about Donald Trump are maybe going to be, a little bit more reticent to do so, given this new order here.
Donald Trump was also asked about that during the press conference, whether or not he would go after other news organizations or magazines who, misrepresented facts when it came to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said, yes. And I think, and I don't, don't quote me on this. I think that he said something referencing 60 Minutes, that they may be looking at. Yet they may be pursuing looking at something with 60 Minutes. But I think it's appropriate because the press needs to be put on notice. And they were very contentious. They were very, it was a very combative relationship that the press had with Donald Trump because they overwhelmingly did not like him. It wasn't about his policies. They overwhelmingly, though many of them suffering from the long-term stages of, impact of Trump derangement syndrome, they had a combative relationship. And I think that even they are going to have to start realizing that times are different now. The fact that the ABC has to pay $15 million $15 million is significant. And I don't know the details, but what you're hearing is that the reason that they did that, because it would prevent them from having to come up with any discovery or something like that. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true, but no network pays out $15 million to a public figure if it wasn't something there. So George Stephanopoulos and many of these people, let's be clear, the people who even go around now saying that Donald Trump is a convicted felon and talking about these 34 counts, they know full well that Donald Trump, the Federal Elections Commission did not go after Donald Trump for the crime that allegedly he committed. They know these things, but they gaslight, which is why you had people like Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough realizing right after the election, we have to make amends. And from Justin Trudeau all the way down, that's exactly what they're seeking to do. You have to deal with the man who's in office now.
Yeah, I think that might even be a governor, Justin Trudeau. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? I think it's hilarious, and I think that he's putting the world on notice. And the media, they need to be more honest. Listen, you can't just lie about the man. You can't selectively edit Kamala Harris interviews to make her sound less dumb. I wouldn't say sound good. I would say less dumb, very deliberately saying it that way. But you know what? I think it's funny, too, because there are still the influencers out there who are still just really trying to make Joe and Kamala a thing. Nobody wants Joe and Kamala. Joe and Kamala don't want Joe and Kamala. But you got this little twerp on X, and I give him credit because he finds a way to make that revenue from the interaction. So I'm sure that's why he does a lot of this. But I want to play a video. Harry Sisson, who I believe in this video may or may not be drinking a Shirley Temple. He is telling us that we regret voting for Donald Trump. Let's take a look at this just for a laugh.
It's crazy how it's only been a month and Trump supporters are already regretting their vote. We told you so.
I think he tried to look cool there. He's wearing the leather jacket, drinking the Shirley Temple, and he's saying that we really regret our vote. I haven't heard that much. I haven't heard it from anybody. I've actually heard more people on the left admit openly that they're excited about a Donald Trump presidency. But do you think that these leftist influencers that have been really taking over the White House, doing the dumb videos in the White House and prancing around, do you think that, maybe we're going to see less of them in the next 4 years? Maybe they're not going to be cool anymore around those circles?
This is struggle cope from he and many others just like him. The fact that they will no longer have influence in American politics because outside of social media, they didn't offer anything of substance. The reality is he can say whatever he wants to say about how Donald Trump supporters feel. But wasn't it just last week when the report came out that 55% or 50, it was the numbers were 55 and 54% of those who believe not just that Donald Trump has been handling this transition well, but approve of, I think it was his cabinet picks. These are actual numbers. So he can say what he can gaslight us because, as you correctly noted, because he needs the engagement farming in order to become relevant. But who are these people? Who are these Trump supporters? There were 76 million of us who voted for Donald Trump, and we're not going to always agree on anything. But the notion that the people who just voted for Donald Trump, before he's able to implement any policy, when he's out here talking about security and immigration and our place on the world stage and giving this wide-ranging press conference, the idea that we're somehow, no, they're dejected because they realize that they won't even have Kamala Harris in 2028 because she won't be the nominee then either. And probably, from what I'm hearing, can't even win the gubernatorial race in California.
I don't think that she could win anything at this point. I really don't. I don't know what she could win, and nobody wanted her, and I think that they really want her to go away, as evidenced by the fact that when she was, or murmurs of her maybe preparing for either a run for governor or possibly even preparing for 2028, then they put out that horrible video of her right before Thanksgiving. I think they kind of ended that one. I mean, we really dodged a bullet, Malik. We dodged a bullet, a drone-sized bullet we dodged with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I do want to ask you, too, before I let you go, about, some revelations that we're seeing. Speaking of people not only not regretting their vote for Donald Trump, but maybe some folks regretting the way that they've thought of or talked about Donald Trump. And I'm sure you saw it over the weekend, but Stephen A. Smith put out a video talking about January 6th and the revelations of there being some FBI informants in that crowd there. We still don't know the full story, probably never will, but saying, boy, it feels like everything that they lied to us about, it was a lie, and everything that Donald Trump and maybe conservative figures were talking about seems much more truthful. And he's really lamenting the Democrat Party for their lies. When people like Stephen A. Smith are able to say that loudly and proudly, I feel like we've got a major vibe shift happening, and I'm wondering how significant you think that is.
What you're starting to see with Stephen A. Smith and even people like Johnny Come Lately, Charlemagne the God, was this realization that the things that you told us, of the people that you were talking to, all of these things that you probably thought were going to happen when it came to Donald Trump, it ended up being the direct opposite. And so it is a realization, not just for their financial bottom line, but just if you plan to be a figure in this space, to be more than just talk about sports, to be a trusted source where someone like Charlamagne the God just doesn't have entertainers on your show, you're going to have to build some trust. And I think that they're acknowledging that. Stephen A. Smith, you're going to see a number of people. The last number that I looked at, I think it was the last report from this year, 1,186 people on January 6th rioters were charged with either being on the Capitol grounds or some who went inside the Capitol. These weren't people who were violent. These weren't people who were attacking police officers. And I don't even believe, and in fact, none of them were convicted on any type of, violent crime. I think that what you're going to see is that because Joe Biden opened up the door, I do believe Donald Trump was already planning it, but there may be a difference now with the scale because Joe Biden decided to not just pardon his son for his gun or tax crimes, he pardoned that dude for crimes that he hasn't even been charged yet for over maybe a 10-year period of time. You're going to see Donald Trump start, and he was also asked about the pardons too in the press conference. You're probably going to see him start with commuting a number of those sentences and not necessarily those convicted of the more serious charges. But I think this just opens up the door where Stephen A. Smith is acknowledging we were lied to. The stuff that y'all said was not true about no FBI informants. They weren't even asked to go to the Capitol, and they were there. This is why people don't trust our government.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't trust the media, and so that's why you're seeing some media figures, as you mentioned, scrambling now to gain some public confidence. Oh, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. We're glad that they're seeing the light. I don't know if it's just convenient or just to save their own hide, but either way, it's just nice to see a little bit of truth come to light from the folks we're not used to hearing it from. So, I think Donald Trump is going to make America great again in about a month. And I think a lot of people, whether they're willing to admit it or not, are very excited about it. Melik, as always, thank you so much for joining me. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you. And I hope to see you in the new year, either before or after the Trump inauguration, to talk about all the great things we're going to see happening.
Sounds good. You take care.
Thanks so much. All right, folks. Crystal Mangum, the woman who accused 3 Duke Lacrosse players of rape back in 2006, effectively ruining their lives, just admitted she made the whole thing up. And I have some final thoughts. Believe all women. Well, that's what the left has been instructing us to do in select situations that benefit their preferred narrative only. That doesn't, of course, extend to the women who accuse Democrats of sex crimes, and that doesn't extend to female athletes who don't want to share a locker room with a male, just to women who make accusations against people or institutions the left would love to see destroyed. And while it is important to listen to all people who speak up about rape or sexual assault, well, this next example highlights an ugly truth. Women are, in fact, capable of lying. 18 years after Crystal Mangum accused 3 Duke Lacrosse players of rape, well, she is now admitting she made it up.
I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong, and made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God. I hope that they can forgive me.
So here's the deal. I believe in forgiveness. I really do. And it could not have been easy for her to come out and come clean after all of these years. So I give her credit for finally doing it. And I hope she has found God, found herself, and is on a path of truth and righteousness. She's still serving time for an unrelated murder of her boyfriend. So prison has a way of making you think, I suppose. However, even though those 3 players were never convicted and the case was ultimately dropped, their lives were still torn up, flipped upside down, and destroyed over the false allegations alone. It was a media firestorm for them, for the university, and it set off a domino effect we are still cleaning up to this day. Woman makes accusation, lives are ruined, woman's word is gospel, and the anti-man and anti-white narrative makes media hacks feel good, so the actual truth does not really matter. Same crap with that bogus Rolling Stone UVA rape story. And then the media hacks and leftists wonder why we don't just jump on the bandwagon every time we hear an allegation. Yeah, we believed Brett Kavanaugh, and yes, most of us also believe Pete Hegseth. And it's not because we think all women lie about assault, but rather we know that some women do. And guess what? When false allegations come to surface even 18 years later like this one, it validates our cause for pause. And you know who suffers most from this crap besides the falsely accused, of course? Well, it's the women who have actually been victimized, raped, and assaulted. Crystal Mangum will have to take her redemption case up with God. That's not our job. But damn, I really wish the media mob would take this as a lesson. Don't jump to conclusions because you might end up ruining an innocent person's life over it. And those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live again at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes of this show whenever you want on Fox Nation. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. And guess what? You still have time to grab that last-minute gift item. Shop all the Outkick merchandise by visiting shop.outkick.com and score 20% off with code HOLIDAY at checkout. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.